Welcome to Jefficho Films. October wouldn't be complete without a werewolf movie. This 1981 movie was directed by Joe Dante and it's starring Dee Wallace. So let's review The Howling. The cops are patrolling looking for a murderer and Billy is worried about his wife Karen, who's out there as bait. She's a reporter and she's been getting calls regularly from Eddie, and he said to meet her at a phone booth where he's going to call and give her directions so they can meet. She has a wire on and back at the TV station. The cops are listening, but the wire cuts out a lot and they pretty much lose her. And oh look, a Roger Corman cameo. She goes into a porn store and all the guys get shamed a little bit for a girl being in there, so they leave. And then she enters a room where people watch videos.
I'm gonna light up your whole body, Karen.
Turn around now, Karen. I want to give you something.
Eddie's in there and he wants to make her feel good, and his voice gets deeper. He basically wants to turn her into a werewolf, but we don't know that yet. The cops get in there and start shooting. They could have easily shot Karen. They didn't know her location. They shot through walls. She can't describe what she saw though. Karen's having bad dreams, and then Terri and Quist find Eddie's apartment. They're reporters and they go looking through there and they find a bunch of drawings of wolf-faced people. They even find a drawing of Karen and a landscape that they all take to Dr. Waggner.
So you found the last name?
Signed his work.
It's right there.
So he did.
Karen has flashes even when she's trying to be intimate with Bill, and her boss puts her on TV, but she's not ready. She freaks. She visits Dr. Waggner for some therapy because he's the only doctor in this movie. She says she can't quite remember what happened, just weird glimpses. He thinks she should go to his colony where they have sessions and group therapy, so her and Bill drive up. Next we're at a beach with a bonfire and there's some banjo music playing, which is always a bad sign, unless it's Mumford & Sons, and we meet many eccentric people, even Marsha, who the doc describes as an unchanneled elemental personality. She's a strange, seductive woman, and Crazy Erle wants to jump into the fire and die. You know, what he's saying is really that he's been alive too long. Karen wakes up and her window is wide open. She hears howling. Just close the window. She grabs a flashlight and she goes and investigates. We get a POV shot of the cabin. It's actually TC that's watching her from the woods. She gets spooked and goes back inside, and Bill gives her a Wolfman Jack reference, which is pretty cool.
Karen thought she saw something moving in the bushes last night. What?
Well, now your coyotes is liable to come into a setup like this looking for garbage. Did you hear anything?
Me? Oh, I sleep like the dead.
Terri and Chris are at the morgue and they want to see Eddie's body, but it's gone and there's claw marks inside where it was being held. Later that night, Donna and Karen are hearing weird sounds, and rather than stay inside where it's safe, they grab a flashlight and a rifle and go looking for it, and they find a murdered cow. The next day the guys go off on a wolf hunt, and TC's running around like he's part animal. Bill shoots a bunny and he's quite proud of it, while Karen is in a group session and she's freaking out. The reporters Terri and Chris are at a bookstore looking through books of warwalks and werewolves, and the book owner explains werewolves to them.
What about killing it with silver bullets?
Well, sure. Silver bullets are fire. It's the only way to get rid of the damn things. They come back from the dead if you don't kill them right. Plus they regenerate. You know what that is? Cut off an arm, cut off a leg, stick a knife in their heart. Nothing. They may look dead, but bam, 3 days later they're as good as new.
Bill doesn't know what to do with his rabbit because he doesn't eat meat. TC says if you kill something and you don't eat it, that it's a sin, but his sister will cook it up for him. So he goes and visits his sister, who makes a move on him, but he refuses. So he walks back in the fog at night and is attacked and bit. The doc has to give him a shot later. Terri and Chris are watching a werewolf movie while reading books, and they get a call from Karen asking to be picked up. So Terry's gonna go and pick him up because Chris still has some stuff to do. And yep, Terri and Karen are walking in that cove from that drawing. Bill's eating meat. He never eats meat. Karen wakes up to Bill being gone because he's off meeting up with Marsha, and we learn that she eats right and takes care of herself and works out because they make love. Reminds me a lot of my first time. We hear a ton of werewolf howling and Terri wakes up and records it, and then we get this shot. But meh, it's the 80s. The next morning, Terri's at the cove and she realizes, yep, this is the one that Eddie drew. So she heads back through the creepy forest and she hears whispers. So naturally she listens to them. And she goes to this cabin. She bumps into a bone that's attached to a synthesizer. She goes in and she finds Eddie's room, and it's exactly like his apartment. All these drawings of people, and even a drawing of Marsha. And we get some glimpses of the werewolf approaching the cabin. And we see its skinny legs. I mean, that's a weakness in my book. She takes the photos and she runs from the growling, and we get little glimpses of the werewolf attacking her. And finally she grabs this tiny little axe and she chops off its arm. And it's some great effects on the arm, especially as it turns back into a human hand. Bill and Karen aren't getting along as Terri runs to the doc's office and grabs the phone and calls Chris. She fills him in what's going on. He tells her to look for a filing cabinet and look for the last name Quist. And she finds Marsha's file, TC's file, and Eddie's file. And then the file is taken from her so casually by a werewolf that it's fucking hilarious.
Oh, Christopher. It's Eddie. Quist.
Werewolf looks great. It could probably be a bit more vicious. It chokes her for quite a while before biting her neck and killing her. But how did she not see it? Chris calls the cops, and then he goes by the bookstore and he grabs some silver bullets and he heads out. And then he's at a gas station getting money shamed for owning a Mazda. Are those expensive?
Come on, take it easy, pal. You know, not all of us got enough money for a Mazda. Some of us have to work for a living, you know what I mean?
Look, I'm in a hurry here. This is an emergency.
Karen finds Terri's body, and the phone's dead, and hiding under their sheet is Eddie, and it's Robert Picardo, and look at that hair.
I saw you die.
You said on the phone that you wanted to get to know me. Well, here I am, Karen. Look at me.
He transforms, and again, the effects are pretty cool. I love the claws and just the nails coming out of it. But again, it takes a few minutes, so Karen, get the hell out of there. She grabs a jar of liquid and just tosses it at him. Luckily, it burns his face. Karen runs to her car, but she's grabbed by two of the hunters and taken to a barn where she sees Terri's body. How did it get there? Because she just left it, and there's really been not enough time for them to be feasting on her body at this point. Doc and Donna explain how good it is to be a werewolf, but there is some dissension among the ranks. Many of them have been around for quite a while. Doc says that she's too important to go missing, but they disagree, and TC's the one missing the hand.
The danger of exposure. We need this shelter to plan, to catch up with society. Times have changed, and we haven't.
You make me sick.
Marsha.
Oh, you're through, Doc.
Chris shows up and he finds the files, but then Eddie breaks through a window and just takes the gun right out of his hands. But then he gives it back to him and says, "Go ahead, take your shot." Clearly he doesn't know he has silver bullets. Chris gets to the barn to save Karen, so he confronts the others. And this guy doesn't believe that he has silver bullets.
Silver bullets, Myers. Get up, TC.
He then shoots Doc, who seems to be pretty pleased with dying, and then he uses another gun to block the door and lock everybody in the barn and throw gasoline around it and light it up. He's taking Terri's death pretty well as they run and get into his Mazda, and Sam the cop starts shooting at him. He's a werewolf too, but he's still able to use a gun because he's only like half changed at this point.
No gas, come on! Come on!
They get into the cop car before being surrounded, and we get the usual car won't start bullshit. I mean, this is a cop car. It probably works. Karen got bit, and she shot him, but it was Bill. And then we get this shot, but again, it's the 80s.
We have to warn people, Chris. We have to make them believe.
They get back and Karen's gonna go on TV and warn people, and then she starts to talk about a secret society and her boss is laughing at her, and then she lets out a howl and she starts to change and Chris has to pull out his gun and shoot her.
Show you something. Make you believe.
At the bar we see some people actually believe what they saw on TV, and Marsha's still alive. This is based on a novel and it's directed by Joe Dante, who did Piranha, Gremlins 1 and 2, Inner Space, The Burb, The Hole, Burying the Axe, and it's starring Dee Wallace, who's been in classics like Cujo, E.T., The Hills Have Eyes. Many of the characters were named after directors who did werewolf movies, and we even get Dick Miller, who was in a couple of great DS9 episodes.
You believe in this?
What am I, an idiot? I'm making a buck here. You want books? I got books. I got chicken blood. I got dog embryos. I got black candles. I got wolfbane. Look at this. Silver bullets. Some joker ordered them. 3006. Never picked them up.
It had a budget of $1.5 million and it made $17.9, and it is considered a cult classic and one of the better werewolf movies. The Howling franchise has 3 novels and 8 films. I feel like I've seen bits and pieces, but definitely didn't watch all of them because when I watched the trailers for some of them, they get pretty bad. Things I would have liked to have seen, use the locations more. The locations were awesome. The cabins were old and looked creepy and in the setting of the forest. Learning a bit more about the werewolves and how they survived so long and how old they are would have been cool, and not the body count and the scare factor. I would have cut the TV crap because that drew a lot of time away from stuff I would have liked to see Eddie in his serial killing before they figured out he was a werewolf. Also, he was a serial killer. He was killing all these women, which drew attention to them, which is kind of against the colony's needs, so that could have been something they could have explored too. Also, Bill became a bit useless after he was bit. I would have liked to see him try to resist Marsha but feel drawn to her. It would have given him purpose if he fought what he was becoming and helped Karen out in the end. The colony was like the werewolves' home ground. It would have been cool if they had like a sweet lair and not just the barn. I get that there's budget issues, but maybe that could have been explored. It also doesn't make sense inviting her there unless they're planning on turning her. Maybe if she had like discovered Eddie went there, it'd be cool. And what is recruitment like? Do they like try to recruit sound-minded people and Eddie was just a mistake? The effects in this are awesome, and I think there's a really good story that could have been elaborated on this. Maybe if they did a Netflix series. If you drag out the murders and the hunt for Eddie and only his victims see his wolf form, you could bring back Picardo for like a detective role. Eddie doesn't even have to get killed to the end of the 2nd or 3rd episode. Then the family would come by to claim the body, but the facts wouldn't add up for Karen's story, because why was everybody killed all animalistically? And if she's only having flashes of what happened to her, she could use that to get to the resort because she knows Eddie stayed there, and she could go all investigating around there too. You could learn people invited there are usually selected for a reason, some for food, some to join, and then Karen can barely escape with her life and get out of there, all with the secret society and stuff, and you can just keep going. So in the end, The Howling is classic. It's a good creepy movie to watch in October. These are 7-foot tall werewolves that just look amazing. Those skinny legs, that is exactly where I would take them out. Well, I'd say give it a watch if you haven't seen it. As always, thanks for watching.